Hello, viewers. Welcome to yet another edition of a Fireside Chat under the series Your Data, Always On, Always Safe, organized jointly by ETCIO and Druva. Data is your business's most valuable asset, and it deserves the best protection. To deliver its full value, you need to protect wherever it lives, as it grows, and comply with required business SLAs. Legacy data protection exposes your business to unpredictable and exponential costs and operational complexity as data grows. Additionally, you need to invest in multiple data protection solutions to be able to manage the diverse workloads across data center, cloud, and edge. In this fireside chat, we have with us two very senior enterprise technology leaders who will throw more light on how to overcome the various bottlenecks with respect to data and maximize it for business growth. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Pavan Satyavali, Vice President, Infrastructure and Operation, Tata Consumer Products, and Mr. Bhaskar Sirohi, Director, Global Solutions Architect, Druva. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Yash. Happy to be here.
Great. I'll set the ball rolling with Mr. Pavan. Pavan sir, in line with the company's ambition to become a formidable player in the FMCG industry, Tata Consumer has embarked on a transformation journey and made significant progress despite the pandemic. Please share an overview of this transformation journey from your perspective.
Okay. So for us, I would say the transformation started a little earlier than pandemic. It was more of I would say, a group direction that the while avatar of us, Tata Beverages, had to come into a consumer space. And there is where we have decided we could have built a foundation. And when I say foundation, it was towards the infrastructure, it was towards the network, towards the security, so that we can then unleash the power of apps and data later on. Okay. So we started working somewhere around 2018. We completely overhauled our infrastructure. We moved completely on cloud. No more operating any data center. From MPLS, we moved to completely internet. We do not subscribe to MPLS anymore. And from a security perspective, also we have changed the paradigm from all those router-based perimeter security or a VPN-based perimeter security to all the cloud-based methods. The other thing which started right after that is we started transforming our system of record area, which is ERP. A lot of consolidation is happening around that place. We had multiple instances which we are all merging into one as one harmonized process across the globe for the company. Now, if you see what's happening is there is a place being built up now for apps and data, right? So now the apps started coming up, which is augmenting or supporting the system of records. And that is something which is generating the data. We are also acquiring the data from outside. And now the whole play is about how do we consume this data? How do we monetize this data? So yes, a lot of work has happened over our last, I would say, 2 to 3 years in this space. We were probably we started a little earlier than pandemic, but all those preparation help us sail through very smoothly while the pandemic.
Sure. Great. So a lot of action on the digital front happening in your company, sir. Great. Let me come to Bhaskar now. Bhaskar, like Pavan sir just said, data, he's doing a lot of stuff around data, and we all know that data is at the heart of any digital transformation. How can enterprise technology leaders protect and ensure availability of data that is distributed across data centers, cloud applications, and endpoints? Because eventually, data as we know it is the new currency, the new oil, and a lot of people call it even as the oxygen. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Yashwendra. And let me tell you one more thing. Again, the same gist, what Pawan was saying, that organizations are building new applications, right? And they're not building the application the way they used to build 10, 15 years ago. So that has changed a lot, right? Which also brings the question like, how do I protect this data which I'm generating, whether in my data center, whether in cloud, or whether on my endpoints, wherein I have a very mobile workforce, right? And pandemic is added to it. Everyone is working from home or a remote location, right? So that has added to it. One thing in this the organizations or enterprises can do over here is that do not rely on traditional methods of taking data protection, right? You need something, a modern approach, which is built to do a couple of things for you. Number one, it should be a very cyber resilient model or architecture, which you should focus on. Secondly, it should be highly scalable, right? Which means that wherever your data is, the application should be able to protect in that shape and form. It shouldn't ask you to change anything or ask you to change anything from a primary architecture perspective, right? And the third and foremost thing that at the end of the day, the data should generate some analytics, some knowledge for you, right? At the end of the day, it's your data. You should know where your data is. Your data shouldn't lie in dark, which is a big problem we see in enterprises today, that they will store data, they will pay for that data, but they have no visibility where the data is. So a modern application should solve these problems with, again, solving the problem how distributed the data is.
Sure, great. Like coming back to Pawan sir, like Bhaskar just said, the data, the solution has to be scalable, resilient, and enable data to generate some value, some insights out of it. What role do you think cloud can play here, in enterprise backup, data protection, and management? And how has it impacted your teams and business groups?
So if I say the traditional way, and what just now Bhaskar was explaining, the modern way, right? The basic difference is liberalization. In your traditional way, you're constrained by so many things, right? One thing he touched about, you should not be changing your primary application or primary data source architecture just because you want to secure it, right? Clouds gives us those wings. So before we started our cloud journey, I had all sort of legacy tools. My tech stack was 4 different tools, thousands of tapes, methods to offshore them in different countries, the hardware, right? So all fascinating things, right? Which something 20 years back we used to be proud of. And when we started, we started with Insync. Okay, I'm telling you the exact feedback from the ops teams. They were just wow. They were saying like, now my 90%, 95% times I know is just happening, wherein the earlier yield used to be 40% data was getting backed up from a user's laptop on a daily basis because of all the old constraints, right? Now you're backing up anywhere and everywhere. We are backing up 24 times a day. So if a machine is on an internet, for a user, the data will get backed up 24 times a day, right? And we go back to almost 2 years, which is good enough for an end user machine. From there, we graduated to the Cloud Ranger. I think it was a recent acquisition by Dhruva, I think a couple of years back, and we were very first one to latch on it. We are using it for almost 350 of our VMs. Though our new philosophy is going serverless, which Bhaskar may not like, but yes, for all of our RDS and all of our VMs, we use that. Highly effective. And then now we have latched on to Phoenix also for all those workloads in the factories which we have, because we need to have workloads in factories for IoT and all. It speeds up, it reduces the defects, and effectively reduces my cost, right? And something which I used to have a 5 or 6 people team earlier to manage my enterprise solutions. Everything is managed by, I think, 1.5 FT. And top of it, people have the ability to restore themselves. What more would I ask for?
So Bhaskar, it lends agility, it cuts costs. What else do you hear from the market? I mean, what role can cloud play in enterprise backup, data protection, and management? And what's the best strategy to bring about simplicity and scale of cloud to enterprise backup and data management, according to you?
Sure, I think it's a multifaceted question, I'll say. But some of the things what Pawan said jogged my memory when I used to handle infrastructure, right? So one of the things which cloud can do very easily for an enterprise, right, from a data protection perspective, is cut down complexity and cost. If you look at just like what Pawan was saying, that he was managing 4 different type of applications, right? And then the math starts, well, how do I protect them, right? Because I cannot go in production without data protection, right? And then you devise different policies, strategies, which basically become very complex to work in future, to upgrade them. If you're doing an application upgrade, what is the impact of that on the data protection? So one first thing is cut on cost and complexity. If you can go to cloud, and if you're going to cloud, keep that in mind, right? Second thing is, from a simplicity and scalability perspective, what can cloud bring to you from a data management perspective? I'll give you a very small example, right? Cloud offers you compute at your fingertips, right? So you can auto scale, you can auto scale down as well, right? So I'll give you an example, like when you are trying to build search into a product, right? Like a very scalable search, we found it is much easier to build on the cloud rather than building it on premises, because on premises, you bring the resources and then you realize that, okay, I don't use those resources 100% of the time, I just use it 20% of the time, but you have invested the hardware and then you realize that those resources are going waste, right? So again, comes back to cost and complexity. But for us, for a data protection vendor to build something, and again, those features are built for our customers, right? So if they want to do an organization-wide search, they should be able to do that, and cloud helps you do that. Same is for any other application which goes to cloud.
Sure. Wonderful. Uh, Pawan sir, let me talk a little bit about cybersecurity, which has become really important in the post-pandemic world. In fact, technology experts are combating a pandemic of a different variety. As ransomware attacks are spiking and crippling organizations of all sizes. What are the best practices that TCPL has implemented to ensure data integrity and availability, operational security, and accelerated recovery?
Yeah, sure. So there is a wide spread of approaches which we take, right? So when you come back to when you look into the problem, right, from where something wrong can happen, right, and there is where you go into some sort of preventive measures, right, and from a security perspective, you could be very clear about your perimeter. You could be very clear about your entry points, right? So things like people are browsing, how do I make them safe, right? So you need to have a state of art cloud proxy solution. People are having their mobile devices as well as their laptop, desktop, and now pandemic, they're working from home, they're working from earlier times, they're working from anywhere, right? So for an example, they're working from station, they're working from airport, right? So you need to have a method by which they can securely connect to your workloads, right? And while they are on the machine, the machines, whether they're encrypted or not, whether you have the right level of mail security or not, right? So in a nutshell, define your perimeter, define your in and out from your endpoint or a network perspective, and put up protection around it. So we have done all of those preventive measures, whether it is a mail system, we are on a best of class security, whether it is on a web proxy, right? So we have all the zero threat kind of solutions out there in place. When it comes to the second leg, right now, you go to any security expert, nobody will give you, even the doctors will not give you 100% safety, right? So now you need to have a measure by which you can identify things faster, right? So something is some anomaly is happening, something wrong is happening, right? So how do we find it fast, right? And there is where you come to the solutions like SOC and SOC-based integrations, wherein you have the right level of log analytics are happening, right level of alerting is happening, wherein you know how's your environment is behaving. There are a lot of exciting things out there which we haven't invested as of now, which we are looking at, which is more of a response mechanism perspective, right? So people are talking about now you can identify something is happening, which is anomaly, and in that anomaly also, with a fair degree of confidence, you can respond to that in an automated way, right? We are very keenly studying that area, though we haven't done any investigation. And the last leg is how do we recover, and there is where these technologies plays a very vital role. Okay, the way we have done is and we firmly believe in self-help, right? So you need to have an ability to restore, and you need to have an ability to restore in a fastest possible way, right? So if user is having some challenge recovering some data, or he need to move to a different machine, how do I make the life so easy for him, right? How do I make it still secure that it is him only? How do I trust him also, right? There is where the solutions we use from Dhruva, especially in Sync, help us a lot, and also from Cloud Ranger and the Phoenix perspective, the admin teams who are working on it, the efficiencies has increased fairly for them for doing any sort of distribution, right? Something which used to be um, probably minutes or hours earlier, where you need to do a tape recoveries and all those things, wherein I never trusted tapes to work. I always used to say, that the problem with tapes is you don't know when it will fail. So whether I will test this last time when it has failed that time, and so the next time actually when I need it, it may not work, right? So I never trusted them. So with cloud technologies, wherein the provider itself is taking care of the storage also, it enables us a lot.
Wow, great, sir. You have a very comprehensive security strategy in place. Great. So, Bhaskar, how are you helping your customers in tackling ransomware? How are you ensuring data integrity, availability, operational security, and accelerated recovery or resiliency for your customers?
I think this is one of the most hot topics today. I was just reading some news about some organization getting hacked by a ransomware. But to come to how Druva actually solves this problem. So number one thing is, like, if you look at a backup, right? Backup is an insurance copy, right? So the first thing when a ransomware attack happens, that every person thinks like, oh, I have a backup copy. That's your peace of mind, right? But what has started now happening, because people who are running these ransomware programs, they are so sophisticated. They actually, when they enter your network, they try to find your backup copy and delete the backup copy first, and then basically go and impact your primary workloads, right? So one of the things Druva has done to make sure that anything like this does not happen to your backup copy is that we have made ourselves ransomware proof. So that was the first step, wherein we made sure that there is no operating environment for a ransomware to come and execute and delete those backup copies, right? Because we are the insurance, and if we don't work, then it's a much bigger disaster, right? Now, this once we have done that, the second step is the anomaly part, the detection part. Now we are doing regular backups, which means that we have visibility into certain data patterns, right? And we can very easily tell a customer like, hey, we are seeing something unusual. Now, we are not a ransomware detection tool, but we can detect unusual data activity, and that goes as an alert to the customer, right? Now, once that happens, Druva has also worked very extensively to go and work with security vendors in this space, right? SIM tools is a classical example wherein all the security related incidents are logged, right? So Druva has a capability to go log unusual data activity event, and then it picked up, and then your security admin knows that something wrong has happened on this day and time exactly. Now, the third phase starts after this. Once you have recognized there's an unusual activity which has happened, you basically start using your tools to do certain identification of data, right? So you will go and you can do forensic a little bit. You can bring hashes like ransomware hashes, and you can do investigation on top of that data, identification and investigation. You can quarantine the data as well. So if you find out that there are certain data snapshots which have been hit by a ransomware, and ransomware is inside the backup copy, you can go and quarantine them, do your investigation. Once you are thorough with your investigation and you have cleaned up your primary data environment, which is your primary workloads, you can do accelerated recovery. And the way we do accelerated recovery, we have kept in mind a behavior of a ransomware is that when it enters your network, it could be dormant for a long period of time, right? So when you're doing the investigation, we show you where the footprint might be, and we help you create something which we call as a golden snapshot. Now, this golden snapshot, what it does is it picks up the most recent file version or database version, whichever way the application owner looks at it, and we create a snapshot which is without a ransomware copy. So now you can restore the data with a peace of mind that whatever I'm restoring will not have a ransomware copy inside it. And because you have done a thorough investigation, which involves forensics, you can delete those snapshots which have ransomware. So what you get back is a very pristine copy, which does not have any ransomware inside it.
Wonderful, Bhaskar. Uh, Coming back to Pawan sir, one final question to you, sir. What does a future-proof backup and data protection strategy look like to you? And how do you think it can impact productivity, customer experience, and ultimately revenue growth for your organization? And do you also feel there are areas of improvement there?
Yeah, I think the leap which has happened from a physical world of the backup infrastructure to the cloud world of the backup infrastructure, and especially the added things which have been coming to that, right? For example, whether it is now ability to do a discovery on the backup data, or what Bhaskar was talking about. Can we do anomaly detection? Some of those things is just awesome, right? So that itself has taken this technology, I would say, years ahead. But when I look back, not as a product company, but as an infrastructure owner for a company, right? Of any scale and size, and see what offer I get, right? So there's definitely a lot of scope area which is not being addressed today, right? So if say I classify my data into multiple areas from where they're getting originated, right? So I have my endpoints, my users' devices where the data is getting originated. It could be a data sitting on his hard disk. It could be a data sitting on his mail, on O365 or a Google or somewhere. It could be a online storage I've given him where he's collecting the data, sharing the data, getting the data. Teams is generating a lot of data these days, right? All of these technologies are well covered by our partners as of now, right? And there's a lot of innovation is also happening in this area. The second area which I'll talk about is the apps, right? Apps are generating the data, and I would say this space is significantly addressed by them, but not entirely, right? Now, if I talk about the apps, which is SaaS, right? So I run success factors for my organization, which is sitting on a multi-tenant platform given by SAP, right? Do I back it up? Do I how do I get a peace of mind there, right? So I don't have a solution in that area, and that is something in futuristic which our partners need to probably think and look. So how do I in the app space, how do I go a little beyond? And the second space in the app which is emerging very fast is all these event-driven architectures, right? So no more. If you go to the cloud solution provider side, whether it is AWS, whether it is Azure or Google, they're moving away from servers. They don't want us to spin the servers. Their way of saying is um, uh, less headaches of, say, antivirus, less headache of scalability, will take care of scalability. But even though they're creating in the back of thing, they're creating a stickiness, right? So if I use a AWS tech stack, right, it becomes a little difficult for me to get out, which is good, which is fine by me. But all these event-driven architecture, I do not have anything to again back it up. I have an application which is completely event-driven, no server whatsoever. Do I have 5 copies? Somebody makes a mistake in the code. Do I restore that? There is different methods. Those are laborious and cumbersome. And the last thing is configs, right? So app config, but what about the infra config, right? So we have all these infrastructure components, right? Whether it is a network switch, whether it is the SAN fabric, right? We have complex things out there. If you see from an impact perspective, any of these things having any sort of a downtime is a total impact for us, right? This is a space which our partners should definitely look into. We've been giving these feedbacks into different forums, but yes, especially the event-driven apps, especially the apps which are on a SaaS space, and especially some of the critical infrastructure config space. If something can be done on those areas, would be a great help.
Sure. Great. So, Bhaskar, there are certainly some gaps in the market, like Mr. Pawan just said. As a solution provider, what are you doing to plug those gaps? And also, what best practices would you recommend to organizations as they build a future-proof backup and data protection strategy, and how they can impact productivity, customer experience, and ultimately revenue growth for their enterprises?
Sure. So I'll answer your first question first around the gaps. today what we see, and very rightly said by Pawan, right? Because these are the new applications, as you may say, or new architectures as these are coming, right? Someone who builds a Kubernetes cluster, right, which is completely, I'll say, non-persistent volumes which they are being used, right? People will say, I don't need to back it up, right? And that's how the entire thing started. But now people are saying, yes, if I lose my Kubernetes clusters configuration, which are known as manifests, how do I recover it, right? And Dhruva is actually looking to bridge that gap. So, like, for example, Kubernetes is something which we are working on, and we in fact have some design partners we are working with to bring protection for Kubernetes type of applications, right? SaaS applications we protect today itself. For example, we protect M365. Now, if you talk to someone who will say, my data is already in cloud, why do I need to protect it? There are numerous examples, things can go wrong, right? So similarly for SaaS apps, a simple misconfiguration or simply something done bad by the admin can basically have a very disastrous impact on your business itself, right? Because these are actually applications which are highly critical for your business. And if you have a downtime or if you have a data loss, it can not only be loss in productivity, but it could actually be loss in terms of business revenue as well, right? Now, what is the, coming to your second question, what are the best practices to build a future-proof backup, right? So the couple of them, which I always quote to my customers is one is look for a solution which is future forward. Don't look at from a perspective that, oh, I have something today, but look at from a perspective, talk to your application owners, talk to someone who is building something for you in your organization, ask them like, hey, what are you going to build in next 1 or 2 years and how am I going to protect it? So that's one strategy I always recommend. And from a vendor characteristic perspective, you should look at from a perspective that are they scalable? Can they meet my requirements? How cyber resilient they are? Do they follow a zero trust architecture? Right? Zero trust architecture, people think that it is like, oh, you don't trust anyone. It's not like that you don't trust anyone. It is built to avoid any human errors, right? As I generally say that very simply, right? And then the third thing is obviously you have to build something which is cost effective for your organization. You cannot like build something which is too expensive, which is not scalable. That defeats the entire purpose, right? And you should also build something looking SLAs in mind. So for example, if I'm building something, I need to know what my recovery time objectives are, recovery point objectives are. If I'm not very clear about it, I'll always end up looking at a solution which is not best meeting my requirements. So those are the things which I would say are the best practices customers should look for.
Sure. Great. That's all we have time for, gentlemen. Thanks a lot for this very interesting discussion. To sum up our conversation, a shifting data landscape has introduced changes in both regulatory data requirements and attack vectors, significantly increasing data risks related to loss, compromise, and non-compliance. For organizations to unlock this data's value while ensuring its proper use, they will need comprehensive data management and protection capabilities. It is time to obviate growing data protection challenges, cost, and complexity, and embrace a radically simple, secure, and cost-efficient data protection platform for backup, recovery, archival, and cloud disaster recovery. Thanks a ton, gentlemen, for sharing your valuable insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yashwendra. It was a pleasure. And thank you, Pawan, hearing your thoughts as well.
And yes, thanks, Bhaskar. Thank you very much.